afternoon and welcome to the Chicago Philippine Reports TV, still the #1 Filipino show in the Midwest. I'm Girlie Pascual.
Good afternoon everyone and welcome to Objectively Reports Show, and I am John Mauricio.
Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat and welcome to Veronica's segment of the show.
Good afternoon everyone and welcome to the Chicago Philippine Reports TV News. This is your host Luella Cabalona.
I'm Maya Layton and I'm your local newscaster.
Magandang hapon po sa inyo. This is Melody Dizon, your Health Matters host.
Hi guys, welcome to the last portion of our show. My name is Nick Vera Perez and this is Let's Dance with Nick.
Coming from Chicago and the Philippines, a comprehensive review of the week's special community events featuring many exciting personalities handled by the most professional Chicago Philippine Reports TV staff.
Every 10 years, the U.S. Census Bureau counts everyone living in the United States. People like Mr. Lee. It doesn't matter whether they are students, service members, renters, employees, have green cards, work visas, are undocumented, have lived here a long time, or moved here recently or temporarily. Regardless of their age, height, income, or ethnicities, they all count. We all have unique stories that are a part of this great nation. We need to be counted, recognized as a community to have our say in how over $1.5 trillion a year in public funding is distributed for hospitals, schools, and roads for the next generation and beyond. Starting April 1st, it's time to do your part. Fill out the census.
Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat and welcome to Veronica's segment of this show. Today, I have a very interesting and very modern entrepreneur. He is from California and he will be talking to us about gig economy. Have you heard about gig economy? If you have not, you will be learning a lot today because this is also my first time to talk seriously about the gig economy. Help me welcome Mr. Ethan Slotkin.
Thanks for having me.
Gig economy expert, and he also calls himself Shadow CEO.
Or my clients do. But I'm okay with
Your
it too.
clients call you Shadow CEO. Okay. Wait. Okay, I forgot your name.
That's okay.
Okay.
Nathan.
Okay, just
Ethan.
Ethan.
Yeah.
And segue. All right, Ethan. You came to Chicago for this special interview about gig economy. What is gig economy?
Yeah, so, anybody who you're seeing out there, whether it's people who drive Uber or Lyft, or whether it's shift workers who work flexibly, or it's writers or marketers, gig comes from kind of musicians, right? Which is you play one job and you kind of leave. And it's kind of like that, such that you have a flexible arrangement and can kind of go into a job, take it, and then have a flexible accommodation outside of that. So these people frequently work hourly, sometimes on a small project basis, but have a flexible work arrangement.
Flexible and part-time.
And part-time, yes.
All right, just like Uber drivers.
Good example. That is a good example.
Why is this gig economy going to affect the 2020 election?
Well, it's 2019 heading into 2020, a lot of technology these days. And so the gig economy has risen because technology has, I think, helped get it there. Before it was previously difficult to find these jobs that were very kind of one-off. Now it's very possible. There are over 60 million people in the U.S. who are part of the gig economy, let alone outside of the U.S. too. So that's a lot of people that you need to cater to and ensure are taken care of.
What are the companies that are involved with this gig economy?
Yeah, so certainly there's like Uber and Lyft, which I think we're probably all familiar with. Beyond that, there are companies. TaskRabbit is one that came about that was for random tasks for building furniture or cleaning. There's a company called Upwork, another one called Thumbtack. Those are for more a variety of jobs, everything from photography all the way through writing work and marketing work. And that's a fraction of the overall. There are, dozens, if not more, companies that touch the gig economy at this point.
Okay, let's talk about the employees versus employers. Uh, who would like the gig economy better? The employees or the employers?
It's a good question. Well, certainly the employers like the gig economy because this gives them access to resources that they would not normally have in a flexible manner, right? So that means when they need somebody's help, they can hire them. When they don't need their help, they don't need to hire them, which is great for numbers and the financials of a business.
And no benefits.
And no benefits if it's a contractor. You're right, no benefits. I will say also though, I think a lot of employees or workers like this as well, especially with the millennials and the rise of them and the generation below.
For the Generation Z.
Generation Z, exactly, because they like this flexibility, right? And this affords them that flexibility. And so, I think an interesting question is in some people's cases, it's intended to be part-time, and some people are using it part-time, but some people are using it a lot as well, right? And 30, 40 plus hours that they're working as part of the gig economy. And so, like you said, no benefits, but that's a little bit tipping in the other direction now.
So it's really replacing actually the traditional corporations, right?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think you even see it within corporations, right? Corporations for the last 5 or 10 years have been having these more flexible work arrangements that was kind of the predecessor
part-time.
to this, part-time and flexible offices and all of that kind of stuff, catering to this demographic. And this is just the follow-on from that now, where it's even more flexible and more people are entering this gig economy. And so it's 60 million, but it's also 60 million and rapidly rising at this point. And they even polled executives at corporations, and over 2/3 of them recently said if they could be a freelancer in this gig economy, they would prefer it, all things equal. So it really says about where the mentality is right now.
It's more about really freelancing. You have your own hours.
That's right.
And do you think how many million people are favoring this?
So
60?
At least 60 million are in it, and that's just the U.S., let alone elsewhere in the world.
These are the working population, right?
This is everybody, actually.
Everybody.
I mean, some of this is professional, professional services as well, marketers and business people. I've been part of the gig economy as well on the business side of things, and so this is actually a pretty big mix. Although it is the working population as well in terms of service workers, etc. But it's expanding. So it's 60 million and rapidly rising as well.
Why did you become a spokesman for the gig economy?
Probably unintentionally. So I was part of the gig economy in several ways for a long time. When I was out of grad school to make some extra money, I built some furniture for people and did other things as part of the gig economy. Then I've certainly been a part of it on the business and the consulting side of things in some ways, but I've also hired probably several thousand people in the gig economy as well. I probably take 5+ Ubers a day on things. I hire people for a variety of other things. So I've kind of seen it from a lot of different angles myself, and I think that's kind of how it became. I've just seen it from a lot of vantage points as these companies have all kind of risen.
So that's a kind of work you do, consulting.
Yep.
For companies to expand or to go into a gig economy.
Yeah,
right?
A lot of times that's true, and so it's entrepreneurs or even as big as corporate in some cases, and a big part of what they want to do is figure out how they can build their business, right? How they can make their business dream work and come true, and part of that equation is how do you find the right talent to make it happen, right? And so the gig economy, as you might expect, becomes a really big part of that, a really, really big part. So a lot of the entrepreneurs who are coming up now are using contractors and freelancers and flexible talent to build their businesses, especially in the beginning.
Is this a kind of, is there a course in traditional colleges and universities here that offer this gig economy course?
That's a great
Is there-
question. Maybe there should
Is
be.
there what? There should be.
There should be. I don't know
Right,
if there
there's
is.
none.
I don't think so. Not that I've seen so specifically on this, but it's possible it will happen soon because it's becoming such a
And
big
you
thing.
will be a professor.
There we go.
All right. Well, very, very interesting. And I see here CAAB, AB5. What is it?
So it's a new regulation that was put in California. Now, California tends to be a more employee-friendly state and obviously very tech-heavy. So it usually is at the forefront of regulations like this. In this case, it stems from companies have been using freelancers and gig economy workers for things, but several of them are doing so because that means, you know, they don't. If people work as contractors, you don't have to pay them benefits necessarily, right? They don't have full employee status. And historically, that was a comfortable mutual relationship because these people maybe only worked 10 or 20 hours and everyone was happy. As more people in this freelance and gig economy are working 30, 40 hours plus, it becomes more of an issue because they kind of are operating like an employee. So the government in this case created this regulation to be able to limit the ability for companies to have just contractors and have to give them employee status, which means benefits as well.
Interesting. Okay. So do you think with the coming election, 2020 election, that will be the presidential election, right? The candidates, the two candidates were both parties, Democrats and Republicans, should really be knowing, knowledgeable about the gig economy, and they should be favoring gig economy in order to win the election, correct?
I think it's pretty important. I mean, you know, you have 60 million people in this gig economy, right? It's an increasing number. A lot of them are millennials and Gen Z, like you said, as well. And, you know, at the forefront of everyone's mind in elections in the U.S. and everywhere else in the world is economy and their well-being, right? And so the effect on people's well-being with these jobs is obviously going to be very important. So I think, yes, I think it's very important that any prospective president will understand
It's a
this.
very important issue.
Yeah.
That,
It sure is.
well, with the current administration of President Trump, let's just guess. Do you think he will favor it for the upcoming election? Would it be an issue that would really he would stick to it and tell people that he's favoring it?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general terms, I think any prospective president will have to be behind the gig economy because there's just so many people that are already a part of it and attached to it. I think the question comes to like this regulation, AB5, which is going to impose large expense on these companies. And, you know, depending upon the leader, they have interests related to these big companies as well. So that is where it becomes a little bit more gray in terms of how various presidential candidates will support bills like AB5 and other such bills.
It is really a matter of a big issue to make them win.
That is important. And probably. Yeah.
All right, you're a millennial, right?
I'm actually the oldest millennial that exists.
The oldest millennial?
Yeah. So technically my generation is called a zennial because it's between Generation X and millennials. But yes, technically speaking, I'm a millennial.
What year was that? Does the millennial start? 2000?
I think it's 1980. I've seen 1982 sometimes, and I've seen
Okay.
1981 and 83.
Until?
I've seen. Until I think it's until about 22 years old or 23 years old right now, more or less. So that would make it, you know, about 90. What is that? 97 or so, 96.
Okay, let's try to be a reader or a psychic. After the gig economy, what do you think is going to be the new economy in this country?
I mean, I think
After gig economy.
So my thought is right now the gig economy is just a portion of what happens, right? Companies run and corporations run as they normally do. The interesting thing about it is a lot of entrepreneurs now are sourcing talent not just within the States, but outside, because they have access to talent pools at various cost levels. Um, and so I think what's going to wind up happening is it's going to be more of these decentralized companies that may not even necessarily have core offices, that are a bit more distributed. And then it kind of begs the question of what is a company at that point? It's a brand attached to a bunch of people who are dispersed. And I think it's already heading in that direction. But we're in this world where corporations still exist as we know them, big buildings with lots of people, and it seems like it's heading away from there. I've seen some companies coming up that don't even have a headquarter office. They just hire all remote workers. Correct. And they're just an assemblage. And I think that's the future of
just
where it's
like
going.
us, we're a big broadcast company. We just do it home based.
You're the modern one.
So, well, I was just kidding. But that we're not that big. We're just a small ethnic broadcast company here in Chicago, and we only have 500,000 plus viewership. Our station number, and that's not that big.
I think you're understating it.
Thank you for gracing our show today.
Thank you for having me.
One last word to our viewing audience, so you can about the gig economy before we sign off.
Yeah, I think the one interesting thing about the gig economy is that these regulations are being put in place, but a lot of the freelancers who came into the gig economy came in because they like the flexibility. And so I think what's going to be really interesting to watch is, do these freelancers actually support these bills, which will reduce the number of people who can be part of it, because more hours will be consolidated to a fewer number of people. So the question remains, do these freelancers who like this flexibility want that consolidation actually, which is, I think, an interesting issue to watch.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot one last question.
Yeah.
Do you think gig economy would produce more wealthy people in this country?
I think in the short term, it'll probably stabilize a little bit more to make sure that there's I don't want to say distribution, but more people have access to jobs, which I think is good. But as the organizations consolidate who provide the gig economy jobs, the technology to find the gig economy jobs, it'll also create some people who have a lot of wealth, of course, in a bit more concentrated way. But I think that'll take a bit of time to get to more of that consolidation.
Or just more middle class?
Yeah, probably more middle class. I think it's good for lower or lower middle class, and maybe even middle class too, to be able to get access to these jobs. It will create a more efficient economy, and if you create a more efficient economy, that means that the overall economy improves, right? So I think overall it'll be a good thing. I think the short term helps middle class and lower middle class, lower class people to get access to jobs, and then the longer term, I think it may increase some people in the upper class too.
Is this the trend throughout the world?
Oh yeah, and
Is that not only the U.S.?
Not only the U.S. In fact, I could just tell you from my field. I didn't have the data, but I've worked with people on my team and otherwise, literally all over the world. I would imagine that the rest of the world is a far bigger percentage of the overall freelance population than just the U.S. by a long shot. Part of the reason is because the cost of living in the U.S. is high. Cost of living in other places is not as high, and so you can access talent pools that you couldn't previously access anywhere in the world now because of technology. So what's great about this is it gives people in places that previously didn't have access to good corporate jobs or corporate centralization, gives them access to good jobs too. So it really democratizes it, which is very cool.
Well, Ethan, very, very interesting, and I hope our viewership out there really learned something from the Shadow CEO today, Mr. Ethan Slotkin.
Thanks for having me, Veronica.
Thank you for gracing our show today, and I hope you have a safe trip going back home.
Thank you.
At maraming salamat po sa inyong panonood. Ako po si Veronica. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Objectively Sports Institution. I'm John Mauricio. This evening, we're here live at the Hyatt,
And my guest tonight is no other than the Consul General of Chicago, Tina Gemoralin. And welcome to our show.
Thank you, Mr. Joe Mauricio. I'm very honored to be in this evening's Hall of Fame, and I'm very proud to say that Ambassador Romualdez is one of your awardees, and I'm very proud of that. I would like to congratulate you on this successful event, Hall of Fame, and a number very talented and hardworking awardees. And I hope I would like to recommend somebody next year.
We are already, his name is already on the list. So, hey, you know, the more diversified, the more, as I like to, for you as a Consul General, you probably knows a lot of outstanding Filipinos outside Chicago in Illinois. And I would like to solicit your help and gave us these people that are really excelling in their own chosen profession.
Yes.
So,
I think I can help you on that because in my job I meet a number of Filipino community leaders and also friends of the Filipino community.
okay. So again, this is Joe, and I hope to see you again next week. So what do you think of the Hall of Fame in Chicago?
Well, I think you've had this for 25 years. Is that well? That's a very good. It's already an institution, I suppose. So it actually brings Filipinos together, and I assume that the people who have gained the whole of being part of this Hall of Fame are people who have succeeded in one way or the other. I'm very flattered that you included me, but I think the Hall of Fame that was given to me is really for all the Filipino Americans who
Yes,
live
and
here in the United
and
States.
and it's our honor and pleasure to have you as our Hall of Famer. And there are 4 ambassadors that member of the Hall of Fame, from Larry Baja to Ambassador Ga, and last year, no, a year ago, Ambassador somebody died. And it was sad to learn that like Gina Lopez is our recipient, but to learn that she passed is very sad, especially for us Hall of Famers, because we were inviting her to come for this. Thing. But you did a wonderful job, and I like your speech, really uplifting our countrymen in the United States. So, anything else you could say about?
Well, again, congratulations to your organization for having something like this. You've had it for 25 years. I hope you will continue to do this because this brings a lot of the Filipino community here, especially in Chicago. You bring them all together, and not only to celebrate the Filipino-American friendship or the Filipino or the U.S.-Philippine friendship, but also bring about the best in every Filipino. Thank you very much.
Okay, marami pong salamat. And again, this is Joe Mauricio, thanking you, and I hope to see you again next week. Marami pong salamat.
Salamat. Thank you.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. This is Melody Dizon, your Health Matters host. And today we will talk about your walking speed can tell you how fast you're aging. I don't know if you like to hear that, but I do. If your stride is on the slow side, you may be most at risk for accelerated aging and the health issues that comes with it. So if your stride has slowed down in your 40s, oops, you may be aging faster than you realize. That's the result of a new study which found that your walking speed at age 45 can be an indicator of your physical and neurological aging. So how fast people are walking in midlife tells us a lot about how much their bodies and brains have aged over time. So gait speed seems to be not only an indicator of aging, but also an indicator of lifelong brain health. So I'm gonna get everybody later here today and get them to walk and see where they're at. Studies show that the slow gait was associated with poor physical function at midlife. researchers determined that slow walking was associated with accelerated aging, which was not only represented through rapid deterioration of organ system, but by facial aging and structural brain changes as well. Ooh. So basically, those who walked slower physically aged faster than their speedier peers, and it showed. The research team made a connection between slow gait and worsened neurocognitive functioning. So those who walked faster has a higher IQ and a reduced risk of dementia. So the link between intelligence and gait proved even stronger when participants whose neurocognitive functioning was lower subsequently had slower gait in their 40s. Researchers were able to determine how fast a person would walk at age 45 by their intelligence at the age of 3. So there is a correlation between the two. The gait speed at midlife may be a summary index of a lifelong aging with possible origins in childhood central nervous deficits at the age of 3 when you all just started walking. As that's what the study points out. So walking seems like a bit simple thing, but really it actually requires the function and interplay of many different organ systems in your body at the same time, including your bones, your heart, your lungs, muscles, visions, nervous systems, and so on and so forth. So reduced walking speed can be a sign of advanced aging and deteriorating organ function. So keeping healthy and exercising your lungs, brain, heart may improve your physical and cognitive health, and thus your gait speed. So while measuring gait is a common practice with older adults, researchers suggest that incorporating such tests earlier in life may be beneficial because gait speed slows meaningful aging-related variation already in midlife, and it may prove to be a useful measure in aging trials aimed at preventing the onset of age-related diseases. That is actually very interesting. So gait speed is a simple, inexpensive indicator of well-being across adulthood. So if I see you walk so slow, I know there's something wrong with you, I think. So let's pay attention and use it. We knew that these kinds of relationships existed in older people, but to show that they are already present and very strong in individuals in their 40s is surprising and very exciting. So while the study doesn't say for certain that improving physical fitness can reverse these changes, it certainly adds to the overall picture in the literature suggesting that the time to start getting on a healthier track in terms of our cardiovascular fitness and our diet and our blood pressure is not when we are older and worried about our memory, but when? Right now. So folks, maybe I will have to ask you later and just try to see how you're gonna walk and see. They said in the study to measure maybe 20 feet and see how long it'll take you to walk on a regular stride. And if you go below 5 seconds, your brain is actually good. If you go higher than 5 seconds, there may be something wrong later. That's what the study says. So just a quick update, Zantac recall, people, drug maker Sanofi is voluntarily recalling of the heartburn medication Zantac. As what they're saying, they are giving people cancer worries. The tests of Zantac and other ranitidine medications found a nitrodimethylamine, or NDMA, as impurity that is considered a possible carcinogen by the U.S. Department of Protection Agency. The FDA and Health Canada said in September that it can be unintentionally introduced into manufacturing through certain chemical reactions. Ooh. That is dangerous. So the FDA has been testing several drugs after it had found the impurity to blood pressure and heart failure medicines known as the ARBs. So drug maker halts shipments of ranitidine heartburn medication after contaminants were found. So folks, just to give you updates, so Zantac, no more Zantac out in the over-the-counter aisle. As what it says, there's some cancer producing danger to those medication. So they pulled that out. And as I just wanted to recap what I said earlier about the walking, that walking is a good thing. So walking can also make your gait steady, because the more you walk, the steadier your gait will be. So let's keep our minds, our body, everything else, our stomach healthy with Zantac, taking that out of your prescription cabinet. and always seek your doctor's advice, okay? Thank you so much. This is Melody Dizon, your Health Matters host. Maraming salamat po.
So sure.